Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so the DeMar DeRozan to Sacramento Kings deal is in place. It's done. Uh, he's going to be a King for 3 years, man. $74 million, and the trade involves Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, cash, and Harrison Barnes headed to Chicago. Sending DeMar DeRozan to do the sign and trade deal there. You know, as a Laker fan, it's kind of bittersweet because you hate seeing him go to Sacramento. Sacramento's one of them teams that we've had issues with over the years. DeMar was supposed to be a Laker in a lot of our eyes, but I don't think the fit was really seamless. I have given zero thought to the fit in Sacramento. I don't know how that looks. Harrison Barnes is a player that has won an NBA championship in this league. Definitely on a win now timeline. He's been with the Sacramento Kings for like probably 6-7 years. So I don't know how he fits the Chicago Bulls circumstances necessarily. Chris Duarte is a throw-in player, nice shooting guard, backup guy. Was kind of older when he was drafted, so him going to Chicago, I don't know if that's actually he's going to be a piece that they actually use or anything. For Sacramento, loosely thinking about it, I think the spacing's probably a little funny there too, to be honest with you. I know they have this floor spacers with Keegan Murray in place. De'Aaron Fox can space the floor at a good enough way. Malik Monk, but Sabonis and DeRozan, that's a little iffy to me. I'm not really sure. I have to see how that looks. Chicago, on the other hand, if they turn around and move Barnes, I think it'll make a lot more sense. They should probably do with Barnes what the Blazers did with Holiday. Immediately send him somewhere else. If they do that, this will make a lot more sense to me. But if they plan on holding on to Barnes, he's a good enough piece, I guess. If your timeline is win now, moving on from DeMar DeRozan, I'm trying to assess if their timeline is still win now. And the reason why I'm thinking that is because this likely triggers more moves. Just like we said about the Josh Giddey move with the Chicago Bulls. This is likely something that triggers more moves. Harrison Barnes probably gets packaged with some other stuff to try to get them a little younger or get them more draft equity. You have to try to get rid of Zach LaVine in some way, or shape, or form. That has to be done in order for them to effectively be a win later rebuilding team. As long as he's on the team, you can still argue that they need to be trying to compete. So they could put Harrison Barnes next to him and just slap their hands together and say, we've done enough. You got Vucevic in place, someone else who's win now. So it's kind of hard to say if the Chicago Bulls are effectively pivoting away from a win now timeline. Josh Giddey, I don't think he has too much more developing to do. He's been in the league for like 4 or 5 years now. Do I like this deal for Chicago? Only if I could see what the books look like in regards to the trade kicker that they probably got, the 2 second-round picks, which seem to be a thing. Cash considerations, I mean, that's just what it is. But I don't know what Barnes' contract looks like. I'd imagine Barnes and Duarte equal out to $74 million, obviously, to make the deals match. So for that, I don't love it. If Barnes is making that kind of money, I definitely don't love that contract. Nor do I feel encouraged that I'll be able to move it. So, you know, it's kind of, I need to do more homework on this trade to try to really make sense of it. I'm actually giving you my live reaction. I was just about to listen to some music and zone out, but this trade here just signifies the end of an era for the Chicago Bulls. DeMar DeRozan signed there several years ago, had an MVP-like season the first year there. You know, they had a really good year, but ultimately fizzled out with the Lonzo Ball injury, another contract they need to get rid of. Although I think he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year on that contract, not really sure. But the point is, I don't think that is as pressing of a deal anymore. But nevertheless, they had a good team until he went down. Then from there, things started going left with Chicago. But they do have like an Ayo Dosunmu. They just picked up Matas Buzelis. They got Kobe White. So those are good assets. I would feel very comfortable tearing everything down around them and just leaving them with those three and a bunch of picks. I would love to do that if I'm Chicago. Problem is, Lonzo's contract, depending on how many years are left, which I don't think is a lot, it's not the easiest thing to move. Zach LaVine's contract is arguably the worst in the entire sport. Like, that's one of the worst contracts ever signed. So it's hard to get rid of that thing, to say the least. So until they get rid of that contract, it's kind of hard to pivot into that win later mode. The problem is, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because the market doesn't want that contract in such a way that they're demanding more than one first-round pick for it. So if I'm pivoting into my rebuild, I can't be giving away my picks. You see what I'm saying? If I'm effectively trying to do a win-later thing, I can't be giving you picks, multiple first-round picks, to get rid of a bad contract. But that's what's required in order to get rid of that contract, and that contract still has like 4 years left on it. So they're in a really bad situation to where they're going to have to sacrifice some picks or some young players. You're going to have to sacrifice a Buzelis or Kobe White or even both of them to get rid of Zach LaVine. And that's why their situation is such a bad one. Bringing in Harrison Barnes, I don't know that does anything at all for the circumstance. If anything, it brought him another contract that may not be the easiest thing to move. If it's anywhere in the $74 million range, because Duarte can't be making no 25 or nothing like that. That contract got to be pretty expensive for Barnes. He got to at least be making 25 a year. More. I don't really know. Speculating at that point, but I'll tell you this, man. DeMar DeRozan was somebody they thought they could lose for nothing. So getting a return for him has to be a win for a team like them who needs all the equity they can get. Chris Duarte, I can argue, you shouldn't have a problem moving him if you want to, or just holding on to him. He doesn't demand anything in regards to a timeline. He can just sit on a bad team. No offense to him, but like, you don't feel any urgency to do anything there unless you just want to. Harrison Barnes is probably somebody you need to move now. And I would package him with Vucevic if I could. Send him to a win-now situation if at all possible. Because that's what it really comes down to. You got to get salary out of there so that you can potentially take on something that will allow you to have things attached to it. You see, what I'm trying to express is, if they could take on a bad contract, maybe they could get a first-round pick, which is the type of thing that Chicago probably really needs. Because it's going to take things like that, of course, to move on from Zach LaVine, and getting rid of Zach LaVine must be done. They can't afford, in my humble opinion, they can't afford to keep that thing under any circumstances. Under any circumstances. There's 4 years left on that deal. He's an injury-prone player that needs to win now. Trying to fix Chicago's situation is a nightmare. It really is, man. Because they don't have the leverage to do anything for themselves. And anything that they're holding on to shouldn't be held on to for the most part outside of those names that we mentioned. Those youngsters. But the thing is that's going to get tricky for them is Kobe White, assuming that he's going to have to be paid soon, he's going to get good money. Somebody's going to take him off your hands because you ain't going to be able to afford to pay him because you're going to have all these contracts on deck. Vucevic got to go. Barnes got to go. LaVine got to go. Ball got to go. That's the money for your young players right there. You just paid Patrick Williams a contract that's likely not going to be easy to move because he hasn't proven himself. And that was a contract that's like inflated in what it is that you would expect him to be worth. 5 years, $90 million. That's too much for a guy who's in all intent and purposes been a bust for you. And with the problems that they have financially, that was not the move. I like Patrick Williams going forward, but I don't love him. So for me, if I'm a Laker team or somebody like that, I'm not trading for that contract. 5 years left on that, I'm not. I just think Chicago is continuing to make decisions that drive them further into a hole, and they really need some guidance over there. They really need a lot. And the best thing I could tell them is, it may be in your best interest, and this may sound crazy, but I don't see too many solutions. It may be in their best interest to move some young pieces like Coby White for picks. If Coby White can net me 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders, that might be my out. Because at the end of the day, I need to find stuff that gives me the guise of being able to reset. Or the not the guys, but the ability to show that I can reset my situation. And the only way you get rid of Zach LaVine is if you attach multiple picks. But if you don't get rid of Zach LaVine, eventually you're going to lose Coby White in theory. So it's like, should I just jump ahead of that and try to get value for Coby? I mean, I don't want to trade Coby White if I'm the Bulls. Hell no. I don't want to trade Ayo Dosunmu. But if I can give myself the equity that at least allow me some cushion in negotiations, maybe I can get off that Zach LaVine contract without giving up 10, 11, 12 picks to do it. Because you must come off of that thing. You can't do it like the Ben Simmons contract, in my opinion, because it has too many years left on it. You know, a part of me thinks that the best thing for them to do is strip it all down and leave themselves with nothing but that contract. That's how bad that is. Everything else should be on a rookie contract, but the Zach LaVine contract. So it's just a nightmare. It don't seem like it has an easy fix. They're probably going to be in a hole for at least another 5 years. Hopefully Buzelis can turn into something. But even if he does, you start running out of money because all your money's wrapped up in that contract there and Vucevic. And they keep on compounding the problem by paying people and taking on Barnes contracts, stuff like that. They're just making it worse, to be honest with you. They're just making it worse. But at least they're willing to make moves. I think that was the criticism of the Chicago Bulls, that they let stuff stay in-house too long without actually moving on from it so that they don't lose it or continue to re-sign people they have no business re-signing, stuff like that. Unless I think DeMar DeRozan really wanted out of Chicago. From what I understand, it was the signing of Josh Giddey that ultimately made it so that he didn't want to be there anymore. With trading for Josh Giddey. But I could argue picking up Josh Giddey was yet another problem for your books, because now you're picking up a guy with questionable character who also in theory is going to be hard to move. God, man, that Chicago situation is awful. And if I were the GM of the Chicago Bulls, I'd probably bite the bullet and just move Zach LaVine with 2 or 3 picks. Just get it over with. Move forward with Ayo Dosunmu, Buzelis, Coby White, and then trade one of them when they get to their highest point for those same picks I gave away. That might be my best bet. And then we can start the process of really actually being in a position to rebuild. But they keep on compounding the problem by paying people and doing stuff like this. The Patrick Williams contract, all of that stuff is just like, yo, you're digging yourself into a further and further hole. When the Chicago Bulls owner finally does fire the people who are in control of this thing, it's going to be an absolute nightmare for the next people who are coming in. That's the reality of it. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. If I'm Masai Ujiri or somebody like that, I'm not taking that Bulls job. No, thank you. I'll wait for the next one. If I'm not taking, because at the end of the day, you are guaranteed to be in a no man's land, win now hell for at least another 3 years. At least. No matter what you do, that situation is bleak. You have got to find stuff out of nothing. You gotta find some second round picks or undrafted players that turn into damn near all-stars to get them out of the hole they're in, that they continue to dig into. It's just awful. It's absolutely awful. And I don't envy any Chicago Bulls fans. I'm glad you enjoyed Michael Jordan's hopefully you're old enough to remember that. A lot of their fans are not. But this is the worst situation in all of basketball by far. By a long shot at this point. And the only hope they may have will be potentially to have to trade away all the best stuff they got for picks to get out of this situation if they want to effectively get out of it. Because like I said, ain't nobody in their right mind taking that Zach LaVine contract from him. Even if he plays a little better, ain't nobody going to do that based on his injury history and the just devastating amount that he has to be paid over the next 4 years, which increases all the way up to like $60 million that final year. So you ain't going to be able to even move that thing as an expiring contract. That's how ugly it is. They paid that man like he was going to be an MVP candidate or something. Just absolutely boneheaded, and we said it when they did it. And now that it's as bad as it looks, at this point, it's exactly what we thought. This is awful. It's the worst contract maybe since the Luol Deng contract. Honestly, this is awful, man. So, yeah, for those who are telling, like, for example, my Laker community who are saying maybe we should just go ahead and bite bullet on that contract, I don't think you understand how bad that contract actually is. And you say, well, the player's productive. Ain't got nothing to do with it. Because you have to weigh the production versus his health issues, where he gets hurt every single year. So he's an athlete. Are you sure he's still that guy? Because the last time we saw him was before the last surgery he had. So for those who are saying he's an excellent leaper, are you sure he's going to come back with that same athleticism? Put it like this. I just drafted all of my fantasy teams. I ain't put him on a single one of them. He ain't getting me again. No way. So the Lakers, I'm confident that Rob Pelinka will steer clear of that Zach LaVine contract, even if they offer picks with it. Why? Because when it's time to move it, guess what you're going to be giving away? Them same damn picks. And that's why nobody's going to trade for it. Because when they get it to where they're going, all that pick equity that came with it got to go back out with it. Just to get rid of it. I would stretch that thing if at all possible. And I know that that's like hell to stretch a contract that big. But for the sake of your basketball flexibility, it may actually be a decent investment. For the Chicago owner, it may actually be a decent investment to just pay that thing off and feel full if at all possible. Just give him his 70 right now. Thank you. Get the hell out of here. That's probably a more lucrative path than what they're headed down with that contract on the books. I ain't kidding. I'm not kidding at all. And I don't know that that's even possible in the collective bargaining agreement, but to be honest with you, I would try to negotiate that into my collective bargaining for next time. Pay in full. If a guy is worth, if he signed a contract for $300 million for the next 6 years, and I find that it's in my best interest to not have that player for another 5 minutes, and nobody will take it from me, I should be able to write him a $300 million contract and get him the hell out of here. The NBA would be a much better league if they could do that. Much better league. If some of these contracts are awful, and this is the only way out of it, and the fans are the ones that have to suffer. And if the fans suffer, you suffer, because they ain't coming to play. They ain't coming to the games. They ain't buying the paraphernalia. If the team is too bad, they're just gonna look at something else. You know what I mean? So it's like in the long run, it probably would be better for you to just cash this dude out now. Thank you. Get them years off of that contract, my free cap space, and let me go on with my rebuild. Pay this dude off now. And I don't think any basketball player going to turn down all of his money at once. I don't think so. I don't think so. So I can't see the Players Association not going along with that. I think they should do it. I really do. I think that should be something that should be worked into the collective bargaining agreement so that teams don't have to trade away such promising talent or all of their future just to undo something that should be undone. Pay that man in full. Alonzo Ball, Ben Simmons, all these dudes should have been given all their money at once. Get them years out of here, that contract, rip that up. They've been paid. We can go forward with our rebuild. A lot of these owners probably wouldn't want to do that, but it should at least be an option. Guys like Steve Ballmer, it ain't going to be a problem. They were so wealthy. He could sign you to a $500 million contract and then pay you out right now and still go on with his life. Some of the other owners like Genie may not want to do that, but the option should be there. It wouldn't be mandatory. Point is, situations like Chicago's need that. That's what they need to be able to do that right now with Zach LaVine. So that's my point of view, man. DeMar DeRozan off to Sacramento. I don't like it. I don't like it for him necessarily because I don't think Sacramento's over the hump with him. They're just a team that's kind of hovering. I mean, maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they do some good things, but I don't think they're gonna be winning a championship with this piece necessarily. But for the sake of moving on from Harrison Barnes, Duarte, and 2 second-round picks, you definitely upgraded. Ain't no question about that. They certainly upgraded. But I don't see a championship in their future. Not in this Western Conference. So, yeah, man, Chicago, man. That's the problem there. So, that's pretty much my take on things. I'd love to hear what other people have to say about this, but I just don't see too much good out of either one of them franchises this upcoming season to make this a trade that makes me excited. I think DeMar DeRozan coming home to LA would have been so much more fun of a story than him going up 500 miles to Cowtown. It don't hit the same. So it's pretty much what I gotta say, man. That's my take on things. BDL44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.